Physicist Paul W. Davies gave a talk recently on how information creates energy, and he was talking about the basically the same topic as what this book is about that I did a video on before. But the interesting thing is that Paul Davies published a paper a couple of years ago on using the harmonic oscillator to simply describe how information, entangled information, will create energy. And he does this using the weak measurement as an example. And what makes this very interesting is that normally, from a relativity perspective, the quantum physics fixates on uncertainty. And so they say that the uncertainty will be evenly distributed between the two variables. So it's either the position and the momentum, or the phase and the amplitude. But this is not accurate, because in fact that's only from after the measurement has taken place. And in the weak measurement, you are able to use entanglement to then just change one variable at a time. And when you do that, the uncertainty is actually a non-commutative resonance that's non-local. And so just changing the one variable causes a non-local increase in energy. That's an asymmetric time shift. And so it's like you're pumping the other variable even though you can't observe it. And Paul Davies says this can convert information into energy, but it appears to violate the second law of thermodynamics. And so this is also described by Louis de Broglie's law of phase harmony. And so technically what's happening is you are violating the conservation of momentum without violating the conservation of energy. And the reason is that momentum is directly proportional to time, or to frequency, and inversely proportional to time. And so Paul W. Davies then points out that the second law of thermodynamics ends up not being violated, because you have to take into account that the demon making the measurement, because it originates from Maxwell's demon, but so they use a demon as an example, but whoever's making the measurement is actually non-locally entangled with the experimental apparatus that has the information and the energy. And so when you take into account that the person doing the experiment is part of the larger energy information, then you realize that the second law of thermodynamics is not violated. And so I will link to Paul Davies' paper in the video description because he has the image of the weak measurement, and the fact that he uses the weak measurement, it ties in with the claim of Basil J. Hiley that the weak measurements are actually non-commutative, and it ties into the non-commutativity, then ties into the meditation, because when you're dealing with time and frequency directly in relativity, it's assumed that time is a byproduct of a spatial measurement. And so I was just watching the PBS Space-Time, Matt O'Dowd talking about time, and he's saying that in relativity the time changes, but he's saying it's still relative to a external measurement. And so the problem with this is that the claim now is that entropy actually is what creates gravity, and so space-time is actually created from quantum entanglement that then creates entropy from the measurement. Essentially like the collapse of the entanglement is what then creates gravity. And this is the claim of Eric Verlinde, so that space-time is actually originally entangled non-locally. And this is also the claim of Roger Penrose, who then ties that into consciousness and proto-consciousness. And so what we perceive to be linear time as part of space-time is actually due to the gravitational collapse of the quantum non-locality, assuming that matter exists. But from the perspective of the photon, as Matt O'Dowd points out, from the perspective of the photon, there is no time. And so there's no space-time, but there's still time. And why is that? Because this is where it gets interesting, is because the photon, as Szilárd de Hoof points out, and with Martin van der Mark, the photon actually, it doesn't have a center of mass measurement because of relativity. And so the photon secretly has this non-commutative space-time inherent to it, which means that you have a absolute time that's actually asymmetric, and it's an eternal motion. And so time isn't just a byproduct of a spatial measurement, but it already exists. And then since it has frequency as the inverse of the time, then through meditation you can then listen to the source of the frequency as resonating with the future. And this is what enables precognitive visions, is because you're able, through meditation, you're able to turn the light around and then listen directly to the source of the light as through the non-locality directly. And you're able to then convert the virtual photons into increased photon energy that's also negative entropy, because it's not based on an external observation, whereas relativity assumes that entropy is a byproduct of any external measurement, and that any biological life inherently has to observe time as an external spatial measurement, and therefore, if there was any negative entropy in the universe, it could not be observed. And that's the claim of standard physics, but in fact, you don't have to observe something externally for it to exist. You can listen to it internally as based on logical inference. And since it's been proven that we can listen to the source of music up to 10 times faster than Fourier uncertainty, that's based on the phase difference between the left and right ear, and that phase difference is at the microsecond wavelength. So it's in the ultrasound frequency. And so the highest pitch we're able to hear externally then resonates internally in the brain as a whole as ultrasound. And then the microtubules of the neurons are proven to have the highest increase in electrical conductance of amplitude at a 3,000 times increase at ultrasound. And this is only possible due to the microtubules having a negative refractive index with the tubulin, so that the ultrasound is actually quantum coherence of the as a super radiance or a superluminal phonon non-locality that's negative entropy and precognitive proto-consciousness. And so that's how you're able to convert information into increased energy internally through meditation by listening to the source of music internally and having this natural resonance with the future. And but since you are externally entangled non-locally through this asymmetric time frequency, then as soon as you open your eyes, then you have the photons that you store up will go out of your eyes through the pineal gland, the third eye, and then what was a time reversed increase in the frequency internally as like a laser that you charge up, so that the increase in charge is actually from the 1/2 spin of the imaginary time from a time reversed and negative frequency resonance that's non-local. And so then you have a higher frequency. That's what the Wan Qi is, the cosmic Qi, is that non-local time frequency, and then it creates photons that are emitted directly as a higher frequency. And so that's why when you open your eyes, then you have a non-local interaction with the energy around you through the photons being emitted out of the eyes through the non-local ether that's connected with the future and the past, overlapping. And you can do certain kind of techniques to try to store up the non-local energy more. And if you do those techniques, then you can store up the energy and then create certain energy effects, like but it's based on the information. It's still based on converting information to energy. So you can have like psychometry, or psychometry, which is like when you touch something, you'll actually get the information from a higher frequency. You'll feel a vibration of an object, and that will tell you the embedded information that you'll able to resonate with that secret non-local holographic source of information in the object that's imprinted in the object from the interaction of another person with the object, or whatever kind of energy interaction. Or you can have telekinesis, or long distance healing, or at an advanced stage you could even create another physical body as bilocation, or levitation, or transmutation. So for example, the weak force is known to be able to cause transmutation, but that's due to the left chirality, the left-handed chirality. But what's not discussed is how that's actually based on the change of space-time from an external measurement. So when you reverse the observation, so it's no longer external, then you're reversing the negative entropy of the weak force that's connected to it changes the spin that then increases the charge of the electromagnetic force. And so this is why Olivier Costa de Beauregard, he said that through meditation or through food internally, you can have various transmutations, the biological transmutations that Louis Curvin discovered, like how if you combine oxygen with sodium, then it'll turn into potassium internally, or you can create, like he had a whole book called Biological Transmutations. And then so Olivier Costa de Beauregard said this is due to the weak force, the change of the chirality of space-time from the spin, the quantum non-local 1/2 spin. And now there's a whole new laboratory at UCLA that's all based on this quantum spin chirality, and so you can resonate the non-local spin. And when they use graphene, they call this a non-local resistance. It's literally what they call the quantum valley Hall effect, as a non-local negative resistance from the graphene, and this is what causes the levitation that was demonstrated recently on the Alien Scientist channel with the researchers there. And that's again due to the spin being the source of the charge. And so when you have the graphene, you have this extra 1/2 spin with the electrons, and so then you're getting a relativistic quantum resonance that's non-local. And there's lots of papers, and they say it's non-local resistance. And so there's lots of once you know this asymmetric time secret, then there's different ways to leverage it for energy as the source of energy from the non-locality directly. But the quantum biology through meditation will access that in the simplest and most direct way, and therefore the most powerful way. It's just a matter of doing the practice based on the understanding. And since we've been completely brainwashed by defining space as a symmetrical measurement, and so we lost the secret truth of how to turn information into energy based on this inherent asymmetric time frequency that's non-local. So that's what the Paul W. Davies is explaining with this harmonic oscillator analysis of turning information into energy. And the idea is to realize that since it's inherently asymmetric, and it's eternally flowing, and that therefore the future is always guiding what we perceive to be matter as the past. And so it's an impersonal process that is the source of eternal energy from information. And then this was the basis for whatever spiritual training or meditation or all the religions and all that. And this secret source of music. And so even though the energy can be stored up, it's like more intense. It actually is always in the end, it's always impersonal, and it can't be seen because it has to be based on listening as time and frequency. And so it's like what I'm trying to say here is that even science says that the universe was created from zero energy, but Lee Smolin, he says it's very hard to make the claim that there was some phase shift of symmetric space that created symmetry breaking of space-time. And it's actually much easier to realize that time is inherently asymmetric. And this is what Lee Smolin argues, and also Roger Penrose and all the non-commutative, the physicists and Alon Khan, and so that time can never be stopped. It's eternal. It's eternal dynamic, and the future's overlapping with the past. And so, like all of our high-tech gadgets, all the engineering and science, it seems very successful, but it actually goes against the truth of being alive based on information, like being alive based on like organized form as life, as negative entropy. And this was Erwin Schrodinger's big point, but also Pascal Jordan, that life originates from this negative entropy as non-locality that's non-commutative. That was Pascal Jordan's big point, is that it self-amplifies into the macro scale from the negative entropy, and that's the true origin of life. And so it's only through meditation that we can then resonate with that source and accumulate it and build it up as the secret of life itself, because it's a self-organizing information that then reorganizes life from the future. So it knows better than we know based on thinking or external observations. So this is the difference between wisdom and science based on external measurements. So it's kind of took me a long time to verbalize the concept I was trying to convey there. But I think I finally said what I wanted to say. And like I said, I will link the Paul Davies paper. And I'm glad he's incorporated the weak measurement explanation, because people don't realize there's this deeper layer to quantum physics. But I learned it my first year of college. I learned that directly from Herbert J. Bernstein. So I don't know what to say. It's like very strange that I would learn that. I mean, I took a long time to decide to go to Hampshire College, so I have to be very thankful to Herbert J. Bernstein, because he emphasized that if you learn the wrong foundation of physics, if you learn classical physics first, as most people do in high school, but I never took physics in high school. I only took the quantum physics from Herbert J. Bernstein, and he immediately taught us non-locality. That's instantaneous. It's not hung up on the speed of light. It's none of that. It's instantaneous, non-local, and that's what creates space-time. And you can create energy as anti-gravity from this non-local information. So thank you very much.